2. 1, 2, 3.
Are you ready, America? It's time for another edition of Game On. With your host, Stevie Ray Braun, and Brad Bad News Bollinger. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Game On. Talking about your favorite sports and different parts of life. Might even get a little take on Lane Kiffin's wife. They tell you what they think and not afraid to take a stance. They'll give you the number of pleats in Charlie Weiss's pants. They're the game on guys, see sports through their eyes. Political correctness just up and dies when they give you their views on any sport you want to hear. They're the game on guys, eating fries, drinking beer.
That is correct. It is Game On. I am Steve Braun. That is Brad Bollinger. And if only you knew. All I can say is, yes, that is basically how this has gone so far. Third time's a charm, if I'm sure. And yes, I am recording. The light's red, so that's good. That's good. I'm Steve Braun. The voice at the other end is Brad Bollinger. Brad?
Howdy.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, you're doing much better than I am so far.
Hey, just blink twice if you need help,
Yeah, it's.
I had a good rant going, and
you had a great
Steve
rant.
Was like, "Oh, I forgot to record."
I didn't
so
hit
I
the
was
record button.
Yeah,
it's
and then
big
we're like,
and
that's,
red.
"That's cool. Let's run it back. We got this." 10 seconds into it, he's like, "I did it again."
I did it again. So
Steve
hopefully you can
might
hear
not
this.
be well, so yeah.
You might. Maybe you can hear this. Maybe you can't. Maybe we're doing a podcast here that you're listening to on September 28th is when we expect it to be out. Or maybe we have to do it all over again tomorrow and you hear it on Thursday or Friday or maybe next week. I don't know. We'll see. There's multiple ways you can find us. Brad is running our TikTok, if I can talk. TikTok, Game On Pod is where you can find us there. We are also on Facebook, Game On Show on Facebook. And Twitter, our handle is @GameOnGuys. You can always email us, gameon@gmail.com. Our WordPress site, gameonguys.wordpress.com. If more than 6 people listen to this, then maybe we'll put in some money to actually get a URL, custom URL or something.
Yeah, it'll get there. I did see we had some viewers in Canada, though.
Canada.
So, welcome.
And we haven't even talked any hockey.
I know, that's our bread and butter.
Or Canadian football.
You guys just wait.
3 downs and a cloud of dust.
Yes.
What's up, Dane Evans? Yeah, looking at you. Darius Bowman is no longer playing. I did see that. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of. Oh,
You've
Roy Finch. Roy Finch,
CFL
how are
knowledge.
you? Roy Finch, doing well? Yeah. Good to see you.
3 people will get these references.
Yes. Yeah. Jeremiah Maselli, former Oregon quarterback, which you were going on a rant in our previous non-recording version of this episode about quarterbacks because you suck when it comes to mentioning quarterbacks. And it was in reference to the fact that Adrian Martinez went off against the Oklahoma Sooners, all because you had to open your mouth and be like, "Oh, Adrian Martinez, he's not any good." And then he looked like a freaking Heisman Trophy winner. So continue, Brad.
Oops. My bad. Okay, so yeah, I didn't like how you worded that, first of all.
What?
I don't. Listen, I know quarterbacks, my man. I just happen to have a curse.
From those playing days at Kirkland
I happen to have
Field.
a curse. That's right. I'll send you the newspaper clippings.
Oh, boy. Doug Quinn will be like, "I didn't write that."
Another Another shout out. No one's going to
Yes,
get.
nobody's going to get any of this, and it's going to be great.
So we've developed something here at Game On over, I don't know, the course of a few weeks. We already have a tradition, and it's called Brad's Kiss of Death. And how it goes is I call out a quarterback who has previously had a lackluster career, and that very same week, they go off and have the best game of their life. Good one. Now you're on top of it. Now Steve's in the game. A couple weeks ago, I called out Bo Nix against BYU. He ended up having 222 passing yards, 35 rushing yards, 5 total touchdowns for a career high. That's right. Last week, I call out Adrian Martinez. He goes for 234 passing, 148 rushing yards. Good Lord. And what's that? 5 total touchdowns. Another career high. I don't know how that's possible. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I am truly cursed, which is very possible.
Looking at your
All
against
I know
the spread,
is,
yeah.
Okay. Don't throw salt in the wound. I'm just going to keep my dumb mouth shut, okay? Are you happy?
All I got to say is,
Jerome in Nashville. Let's keep moving. Hey, Jerome, how are you?
What do you say, King of the Jungle?
What do you say, man? How you feeling?
The captain just called 2 calls ago from Cleveland. Paraphrase, Jim Mora. Cleveland? Come on. When you have pro teams and you have pro championships, you have pro athletes, you can talk the smack. But you're from Cleveland, okay? Boston is now the city of champions. Get used to it. Deal with it, okay? And until you step up and bring home some hardware, you earn the right to talk the smack. Not just because you're from Cleveland, okay? Bohica, buddy. That stands for bend over, here it comes again. I'm out, bro.
bend over, here it comes again. Bohica, buddy.
That was worth the payoff. I mean, that payoff was worth the journey there.
Yeah, I really thought I had that cut shorter, so we'll work on that for next week.
Okay, so we'll work on my quarterbacks and your technical aspect.
Yes.
Okay.
I've been good on the technical aspect up until week 3, so very similar to the OU Sooners.
What was that saying again?
Bohica, baby. Bend over,
Bohica.
here it comes again.
Bend over, here it comes again. Okay, let me write that down.
Write
Let's
that
go
down
on
because-
Tinder profile.
Because that's probably how your breakdown of this TCU OU game is going to end up being. Because you'll
This
talk
is
about
going to be a rough episode.
You're going to talk about Duggan being amazing or how terrible he is, but then you're going to try to reverse psychology it and say that he's awesome and that he might be the next coming of Kenny Trill Hill. Or I don't know, Andy Dalton. That would be a better reference, I guess.
Wow.
And then he'll go out there and actually perform like Andy Dalton circa TCU Horned Frog Day, and OU's going to lose, and then I will blame you. I will blame you everywhere.
That's fair.
All right, so Oklahoma lost to Kansas State. Adrian Martinez looked amazing. The defense. Do you have a cat there? What is happening?
There is a cat here.
What?
It's a black cat, let me tell you that, because my luck is bad.
What is happening? I just heard this like meow in the background.
It's going to be a rough episode.
What is going on? So Oklahoma lost. The defense couldn't figure out. First, they couldn't find Deuce Vaughn. I had like eerie. It was like watching Quentin Griffin, but being on the other side of it for 4 years. All of a sudden, I was like, oh, so that's how teams felt when Quentin Griffin was running behind that offensive line, and they couldn't find him. So you go from that to then having Adrian Martinez run all over the place, but also be able to throw and complete passes, something that I didn't know he could do as well.
See, I wasn't alone.
What in the world is happening? And I know we, and then Dylan Gabriel was what we kind of, I think everybody really thought he was, which is a game manager and a guy that if he can get it to the talent on the field, they're going to be okay. And Saturday he couldn't get it to the talent, and they struggled. I mean, it was just everything that could go wrong in a lot of regards went wrong in that game for OU. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't play. I mean, the defense was what we've grown accustomed to, which we knew was going to happen at some point. But you thought, it's going to happen, but the offense is going to be okay, and you'll be all right. But as Brent Venables put it, we just got our butt kicked. They played better than us in all facets of the game, and it showed there. And now you're looking at an OU team that you start looking ahead, and you're like, okay, they've got TCU this week. They've got Texas next week in the Red River rivalry, which after what Texas did against Alabama, you got to be concerned about. And then you go into a Kansas game that there's a potential Kansas could be 6-0 going into the OU game 2 weeks from now. I mean, it's mind-blowing to think about the potential here for OU to, I mean, things could fall apart for this Oklahoma team if they don't take care of business and get some things figured out, especially offensively. I think that's the thing that's been most concerning for a lot of people. Yes, the defense played ahead of schedule in a lot of people's minds. I think a lot of people saw the offense being further ahead, and it hasn't been. Part of that's the offensive line had struggled in those early games. Saw some of those issues again, but then we saw a Dylan Gabriel, and we talked about it, I think, previously. We've seen OU benefit from some phenomenal quarterbacks, guys that were first-round picks, and guys that have had really good early careers in the NFL for some of them. And now you have a guy that, at best, would be like a 5th or 6th round draft pick, I would say, in the NFL when he goes out, if he does get drafted, at best. I mean, he's got better potential of playing in the Canadian Football League or the XFL. So I think there's a concern there for OU fans as we move forward, because this stretch, you're not talking about a dominant OU team. It was a team that I think people thought, we're a year or two away at best as well. And because of how they played early on, how they took care of Nebraska, it accelerated it in everyone's mind. And now we got a little bit of a dose of reality that said, hold on, let's think about what we thought before this season started.
Yeah, it was hard to decide on where to even start talking about this game. But I'm going to go back to Deuce Vaughn, actually. My greatest wish, and I think the reason why OU is leaving the Big 12 for the SEC is so we never have to play that little shit Deuce Vaughn ever again. This guy is unreal when he plays OU, and I don't understand what it is. But let me just give you a quick few stats here. 2020 against Oklahoma, 8 rushes, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Okay, well, not that big of a deal. Oh, wait, let me slide over. He also had 4 receptions for 129 yards. Fast forward to 2021 against Oklahoma. 15 rushes, 51 yards. Okay, that's fine. We'll go ahead and slide over. Oh no, 10 receptions for 104 yards and a touchdown. You're starting to get it, right?
Yep.
Well, let's fast forward to last week. He says, you know what? I'm going to add some rushing to my stats. 25 attempts, 116 yards. I don't know what it is, but he is OU's kryptonite. I know he's smaller, so it's hard to see him behind the line, blah, 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 but other people seem to figure it out okay. I'm not saying he's bad against other people, don't get me wrong, but he comes to play against OU. He really, really, truly does. And like you mentioned, he has that Quentin Griffin aspect to him. He's a talented dude. Don't take the little shit comment wrong. It was out of love, but
he's the Darren Sproles. I mean, you go back to Sproles and the success he had in the NFL. I could easily see a Deuce Vaughn being very similar in that, and just how he plays. But I think it's also that whole he's at Kansas State right now as well. I mean, they both are K-State guys. I see the same potential in a Deuce Vaughn. I'm not saying he's going to go do that, but very similar style, and it's just frustrating. But you made a good point. He does that against OU. He plays so well against OU, and not that he doesn't against other teams, but I think, and we see this all the time, OU's got the rich history. OU has the target on their back. Even when they're not great, they still have the target on the back because they are a team historically with national championships and a team that is going to be up at the top of the top 25 every single year. I mean, just it's kind of the old running joke when it comes to college football amongst sports radio folks and sports writers, sports media in general. You could do the top 10 20 years from now, and you'd probably hit on 8 of the schools with ease. I mean, it's just that's how it's been. You could throw Texas in there, you throw Oklahoma in there, you throw Ohio State, Michigan, maybe a Penn State, an Alabama. You can have Georgia in there, USC, and you're probably going to be pretty close 20 years from now. So
Right.
I think that plays a big part in it, and that OU is going to get the very best of their opponent every single time. And you, as OU, and a coaching staff and players and everybody else, have to be prepared for that going into every single game, and you can't have any let up to where you're leading into what just happened on Saturday. And I think that was a lot of it. They came in prepared, and OU was not, and it showed. It definitely showed.
Well, you get dominated in every facet of the game. They really did. And hand it to K-State. I mean, they won that game outright. They were better on offense, defense, special teams. The thing that really, really hurt the Sooners is the penalty yardage, the false starts. There was 4 false starts, I believe. They ended up having 11 penalties for 87 yards. When you're an offense that depends on rhythm and momentum, and you get 4 false start penalties, that's 4 drives alone that can be killed right there. Because if you're not staying ahead of the chains, you're going to be in trouble in that offense. You don't want 2nd and 15 because that's not how that offense operates. They need to move the ball. They need to run the ball, pick up 3-4 yards first down, 2nd down, hit a little play action. But if you're playing behind the chains, that offense isn't going to succeed, even though there's some talent on there. Don't get me wrong. I think Dillon Gabriel's a good quarterback. He's a game manager. He's not a number 1 draft pick like you stated, but he can make the throws that are needed to make. He did miss some targets this weekend, and I was upset about that. But I don't really put this on Dillon Gabriel, to be honest with you. When I look at this game, it was a complete team loss.
Oh, yeah.
I can't really pin it on one guy. They didn't look ready to play. The defense looked like the old defense, which is just very, very bad. You can't let Adrian Martinez run all over you. You can't let Adrian Martinez score 5 touchdowns on you. You can't let Adrian Martinez throw for 234 yards against you. You can't let Adrian Martinez pick up a 3rd and forever with the game on the line. These are the things you can't do. And that's exactly what happened, and that's exactly why OU lost.
Yep.
We're moving on. They still have everything in front of them. I'm okay, but I just needed to get this out. Onwards.
Anything else in college football that really stood out to you? The biggest takeaway for me is there has been a lot more of teams hanging around than normal. I mean, even Georgia. We talked about last week how dominant Georgia looked, and then a Kent State team rolls in there, and the Flashes stayed in that game through three quarters, and it still was. I mean, it wasn't a huge blowout by the end of the 4th. I mean, you saw some opportunities there. You saw, I mean, there's a lot of games that were a lot closer than they should have been. Clemson against Wake Forest. You can just go down the list of some of those games, and it was just interesting to see how close games were late on Saturday.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned those 2 games, because if you follow our TikTok, those were the first 2 of Brad's bonus picks that I gave you that hit Steve. So follow Brad's bonus picks for actual good picks from me.
Yeah, apparently that's the...
Steve can give you the good ones here, but watch Brad's bonus picks. But yeah, I think people got to realize, and I've said this all along, I think Kent State's a pretty good football team. I mean, their schedule is unreal. It's the toughest schedule I've seen. I mean, they're playing the likes of Washington and OU and Georgia. And you saw on Saturday, they hung with Georgia. I mean, yes, they were down by, two scores the whole game practically, but they didn't fold. They didn't go away. They kept coming back. They scored points on them, and that doesn't happen this year against Georgia, especially with these weaker teams. They're not putting points on the board. So I'm not surprised. That was like the most confident pick I had because they were getting 45.5 points, and I just thought that was a little insulting. And I don't think Georgia really runs up the score on people anyway. So, but yeah, I kind of like it though. I like the parity. It's not just okay. Well, we're gonna get Alabama versus Georgia for sure. I mean, we still could, but I like a little mystery in my college football.
Yeah, and boy, have they delivered in that regard. It has been very interesting to see some of the very close games, tight games, late into contests that we have seen so far.
And not to make this a Kent State podcast, but look for Kent State and the Lions going forward because they are going to win their conference, even with all these losses at the beginning of the year. They're going to win their conference, and these next few weeks, they're going to get some pretty good lines that is based off of the first few weeks against these great teams. So keep an eye on those Kent State lines because I think you can make some money there.
Is that some foreshadowing for later in our against the spread? I don't know. Stick around.
I don't know.
All
who am I
right.
gonna curse this week?
Yeah, who will you curse? Let's go. Who will you be
Dylan
cursing?
Gabriel, that
It's more
guy
like,
sucks. Huh?
It's more like who will you be cursing come Monday? All right, let's jump over college basketball. Interesting, and this ties back into the state of Oklahoma. Decision came down for Memphis and some of their recruiting issues, and they get 3 years probation, no-show clause for anybody, no postseason bans, none of that, as they are a long list of schools that have received some kind of probation, but the first being Oklahoma State. When we go back to 2020, June 5th, 2020, Oklahoma State got that 1 year postseason ban, 3 year probation. Lamont Evans, the former assistant coach, got a 10-year show cause, and the appeal by Oklahoma State was upheld last November 3rd, 2021, and they served that postseason ban this past season. On November 20th, 2020, Alabama received a 3-year probation, and Kobe Baker received a 10-year show cause. Bruce Pearl and Auburn, a 2-game suspension for Pearl back on February 10th, 2021. Auburn got a 4-year probation. Chuck Person, an assistant coach, received a 10-year show cause, and Harris Adler received a 1-year show cause from the NCAA. Auburn had previously self-imposed a postseason ban in a season that they knew they had no shot. And then just 15 days later, on February 25th, 2021, South Carolina received a 2-year probation, and Lamont Evans, the same assistant coach from that Oklahoma State team, had received that 10-year show cause as well. April 15th, 2021, USC gets a 2-year probation, and Tony Bland received a 3-year show cause. And then Creighton received a 2-year probation, and Preston Murphy received a 2-year show cause back on June 22nd, 2021. On the 29th of June last year, TCU received a 3-year probation, and Corey Barker a 5-year show cause. And December 20th, 2021, the IARP decision came down for North Carolina State. They received 1-year probation, Orlando Early a 6-year show cause, and their head coach Mark Gottfried a 1-year show cause. And then, like I mentioned, today, September 27th, when we are recording this, the IARP decision came down for the Memphis Tigers and Penny Hardaway, and the Tigers received a 3-year probation. Brad, it's incredible to me that you had an Oklahoma State team, Oklahoma State as a athletic department university participated, were compliant in the investigation by the NCAA, but because Lamont Evans did not participate, was not helpful in that investigation, they get hit with a 1-year postseason ban, 3-year probation, scholarship issues, all of that. And then you have other schools that barely get a slap on the wrist, and some of those were not helpful in the investigation, did not participate. It's just mind-blowing. And I'm typically a defender of the NCAA when it comes to some of these things, because there's rules, there's regulations, there's things you have to do to follow. You willingly participate within the association. It's made up by its members. They decide a lot of the rules. But then you have things like this, and it's just it's mind-boggling to me that you have a school participate in the investigation. They're helpful throughout, and you still dock them, and you don't hold up that standard across the board with other schools. I don't get it, and I hate it for Oklahoma State. I know they're going to be all right. They'll recover. They've gotten past the 1-year postseason ban. That's over now. They're going to get through the 3-year probation here soon. This summer would be year 3, I believe. Well, I guess it started last year, so they've got 2 more years left in that 3-year probation, I believe. But still, it's just frustrating to watch the NCAA decision makers and part of that the rules committee or investigation committee to hand down such a stiff penalty and not uphold that same standard across the board.
Yeah, and you have a good background to kind of speak on this because you do have that college athletic background, but I've always found it interesting how the NCAA picks and chooses when to enforce certain things, when to turn a blind eye to certain things, and especially with these, it's just a whole new landscape, and with the NIL deals and everything like that, the NCAA is just it's a whirlwind right now for them. And when you kind of get these black eyes like the OSU situation, and I agree, I think it's ridiculous what happened to Oklahoma State. You and I are both OU fans, but like we totally sympathize with how kind of just unjust that whole situation was with them. It's fascinating, and I kind of wonder what kind of path we're going down on here with the NCAA. I mean, what do you think as far as, you've kind of been in it before, like, what do you think happened in that Oklahoma State situation? Was there a certain thing that just tipped the whole thing off, where they were like, nope, we got to lay the hammer down here?
That's what I struggle with. I'm like, there must have been something in that investigation that was so glaring that they said, here's where you should have known. Here's where you as a head coach or a compliance office, a university, an athletic department should have been aware. This was the tipping point. This was the bright shining light that you guys somehow missed. And because of that, we have to dock you. But on the reverse side of that, and that's my thing, a lot of people will go to, well, North Carolina had their academic problems. But that was across the board. That was across the university. That was not a specific to athletes, specific to the athletic department academic scandal. That was a university deal, and the NCAA basically came out and said, that's an accreditation issue. That is not an athletics issue, because it's not just athletes that benefited from that. Now, were there a lot of athletes that did? Yes. So, a lot of times when there's things like that with the NCAA, I'm able to look at it and say, oh yeah, this is probably why. And I think that, like that North Carolina situation, when it comes to this Oklahoma State one, I think you're right. There had to have been something that was a tipping point. But then when you have other schools that maybe don't participate in the investigation as well as OSU did, and then they're able to get off because they didn't participate, I think that's setting a terrible standard for the NCAA. And Mike Boynton said this much during the press conference last year. He came out and said, other schools, if the NCAA comes and knocks on your door to investigate, I would advise you to not participate. Mm-hmm. Do not be forthcoming. Do not participate, because look what it does. And that's the issue. If you're not going to participate, if you're not going to be a part of the investigation and disclose things, and open up and basically open up the books and participate in interviews and spend all that time, you should be docked for not, because you as an institution agreed to these rules. You agreed to this investigation process. And if you are not going to participate in such and follow those rules and what has been agreed upon as a association that's made up of members, then you should be penalized for such. And they're not. And I think that is the biggest concern for someone that has been in some of those meetings. I haven't been in meetings where it was infractions and things like that, but going through the transition process from NAIA to NCAA, some of those folks that go in and do those investigations, they came in to do basically an audit of our athletic department when I was working in athletics. I've met with a Chuck Smirt. Chuck Smirt did the investigation after the Sports Illustrated stuff over at Oklahoma State. When all that came out, OSU hired Chuck Smirt as their third-party investigator, tied in with the NCAA. He's a former compliance guy for the NCAA, background in compliance. He came in and did their investigation at OSU. I've been in a meeting. I've met one-on-one with Chuck Smirt. The way he asked questions, I could see where you're able to, if you just answer the questions as he asked them and don't elaborate, he's not going to come up with anything unless it's on a piece of paper or somebody slips up and says something. And that's where it may have been. Oklahoma State, somebody said something. And that's where they said, well, that sounds like you knew. Or you should have known. Or you had an inkling of, something doesn't seem right here with Coach Evans. That type of, it had to have been something like that. But again, I go back to the fact that if they're not going to go and penalize schools for not participating, then why would they have anybody participate moving forward? And you've seen a lot of, they've started to move away from that investigation wing and the compliance. They've kind of opened it up and said, hey, conferences, schools, subdivisions, you all figure this out. Because I think they see, and we'll get into this more after football season, I'm sure, and into the summer as we do this podcast, but the climate and the future of the NCAA, I don't think it's going to change as drastically as maybe even I imagined, but it's going to change in just how we knew it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, heck, even 3 years ago. Where it's going to be and where it was will be drastically different. Part of that's NIL, some of that's transfer portal, but just how it's going to be arranged, governed, all of that, I think is going to have a little bit more autonomy within the schools, even more so than it already did. You got anything to add, Brad?
No, I mean.
Or did I ramble too much?
No. It's it's without getting too passionate about it. I agree with what you're saying, and I don't think a lot of people have the rosy outlook that you do on the NCAA a lot of the time. So it'll be interesting, and I thought the most interesting part was how Oklahoma State reacted to the whole situation. They were very adamant in their response, and some part of me really appreciated it. I mean, you gotta speak out when you see something wrong, and I feel like that's what they were doing. They took it to a pretty high level, but they felt like they were justified. So interesting to see how it plays out.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, it is time for the fun stuff, fantasy football picks and against the spread. We'll start with our fantasy football picks. We are currently tied 1-1 on the year as we move into week 4 of the NFL season. We skipped week 1 as we hadn't started up the podcast yet. Last week, I was victorious, 57.5 points to 43 for Brad. A big performance by Jalen Hurts, Dalvin Cook, and Cooper Kupp got me onto the winning side. Darren Waller came in with just 3.5 points. Brad, your big performers, Kirk Cousins with 18, Amon-Ra St. Brown with 10, and Dallas Goedert came in with 9.5. The injury to DeAndre Swift, though, did hurt you, 5.5 points for him, and that probably kept you from pushing even closer in this contest.
And even Dallas Goedert got knocked out
Yes.
of his game as well after he did score a touchdown, but he got knocked out during the first half. So it was an unfortunate fantasy week for me for sure, but theme of the podcast, onward.
Hey, whatever, man. I had Najee Harris toss the ball back for a fumble and then lost by 2 points. So, anyways,
Bring that up.
Brad, it's your turn to lead us off on the fantasy picks. Where you going, buddy?
First pick this week, I'm going to go ahead and take Nick Chubb against the Atlanta Falcons. Chubb is averaging 113 yards per game. He's got 4 touchdowns in 3 games. I think Atlanta is a lot better than people might think. I like to give this comparison with the Atlanta Falcons that they are last year's Detroit Lions. They're not going to win a lot of games, but they're going to be competitive, and the games they're going to watch, or the games they're going to play in, are going to be fun to watch. I enjoy watching that team, keeping an eye on them, but I see Nick Chubb continuing his dominance on the ground this week.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, I'm going to jump over to wide receivers. I am going to go with Jamar Chase.
Okay.
At wide receiver. Taking on the Miami Dolphins, I could see this being a high-scoring affair. Yes, Cincinnati has struggled. Offensive line has been an issue once again this season. But I believe with a Miami team that is able to put up a bunch of points as well, this could be a shootout. And Jamar Chase is always good for about 10 points anyway. So he's a target machine, always coming up with ridiculous catches. So Chase is my first overall pick in this matchup number 3 of the year for Game On Fantasy Football.
That game was an interesting game to me. I kind of hesitated because it was on Thursday Night Football. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah.
I know Tua had his concussion issues, which I can't believe he re-entered that game, but that's another story. I just kind of wonder kind of the after effects of that exhausting game against Buffalo and the Miami Heat, when every player was basically passing out at the end of the game, if that quick turnaround is really going to hurt that game. But it is an entertaining game, and I am definitely keeping my eyes on that. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and take quarterback Aaron Rodgers versus the Patriots. Mac Jones with the high ankle sprain last week. They were already kind of, getting out of the gates very slowly this year, and I think that really kind of brings a real halt to any sort of momentum they were feeling. I feel like the Patriots are, you pick a fantasy player against the Patriots, and someone will automatically come back with, well, what about Bill Belichick scheming against that person, blah, 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 blah. And to that, I say, I'm not a Bill Belichick person. I'm not a Bill Belichick believer. I am on the opinion that Tom Brady was the majority of the reason for that dynasty, and I will die on that hill. But regardless, give me Aaron Rodgers against those struggling Patriots. I feel like he kind of connected and built some more chemistry last week in Tampa Bay with his new receiving core. They're still trying to figure things out there, but I think as the season progresses, Aaron Rodgers is a pro. He's an MVP for a reason. Very talented dude. I think they're going to figure it out. So I'm starting this week against the Patriots.
I like it. Not a bad pick there. I'm going to jump over to tight end, and you mentioned success against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I believe my pick, Travis Kelce, will have success against the Bucs. Kansas City heading to Tampa. Sure, there could be issues with the hurricane that's going into Florida this week. That could play an impact into how this game is played out weather-wise. But I have a feeling Travis Kelce will be a big-time scorer against a Tampa Bay team that has struggled so far this season. So Travis Kelce is my pick at tight end. Brad, you have wide receiver and tight end still to go.
Yes, sir. And it's funny you mentioned the hurricane situation. I was looking at the card here, and it felt like a lot of weird outside factors are playing a role this week, because you've got the London game, you've got this hurricane game, and like I mentioned with the Miami game, you've got that quick turnaround for the Dolphins and Tua with his concussion issues. So there was a lot of games that I liked, but I was hesitant on because these random factors like the weather and playing in London or whatever it may be. But I went ahead and chose for my wide receiver Mike Evans against the Kansas City Chiefs in that very same game you just mentioned. I like a Mike Evans coming off suspension, a pissed off Mike Evans, a rested Mike Evans, and a Mike Evans with barely any competition for touches or for targets in that receiving core. They're kind of piecing together people off the street. They threw in Cole Beasley last week. They are just looking for bodies at this point. So getting a star wide receiver back in Mike Evans, I think he's going to see a lot of targets on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. I could see Mike Evans with a limited,
with the
limited
Kansas City
receiving
Chiefs,
core. I mean,
it could
the
be
Chiefs.
kind of an up-paced game. They might need to play from behind. There's a lot of factors in there that, and Mike Evans is just pretty effing good. So,
yes, he is. All right, I'm going to go to quarterback. Buffalo, Baltimore. I'm going to take one of those QBs. I'm going to go with Josh Allen against the Baltimore Ravens. I just see him responding well against a team, or responding well after a frustrating loss. You saw Ken Dorsey throwing tablets like he was Tom Brady up in the booth. I have a feeling that the Bills are going to go out with a vengeance and try to show that that was a fluke and get that offense churning. So I'm going to go with Josh Allen against Baltimore. Another game that I could see being a high-scoring affair as well.
That is an awesome game, and I'm looking forward to that. So much so, I went ahead for my tight end and picked the same game. I'm taking Mark Andrews versus the Buffalo Bills. Yep. Typically, looking at these matchups, I'm not crazy about a tight end playing the Buffalo Bills with their talented defense, but there are exceptions to certain rules, and Mark Andrews is an exception to this rule because he is top 2-3 tight ends in the league. He's a game changer. Where do you have Mark Andrews ranked, by the way? Tight ends.
He's definitely top 3. And
Kittle's kind of off and on with his injuries and everything.
I was going to say he may even be top 2 at this point.
I think you got to move him ahead just because of his durability.
Yeah, it's Kelsey and Andrews, and then probably Kittle in there at 3, and then you get into Waller and whoever else Pitts.
Right.
As you move down the list.
Watching Baltimore Ravens games, you can tell how much Lamar Jackson depends on Mark Andrews.
Yes.
Whenever there is trouble afoot, he finds number 89, and he is always there, and he always delivers.
Oh.
Andrews against Buffalo.
Hold on, Brad. Hold on, we were losing you there for a second.
It's like this matchup.
You still there? Brad. We lost you. You buffered on us. Still retraining, and you're muted.
Hello.
There you are. Oh.
Hello.
There you are.
What happened?
That's weird. It's like.
Hello.
It was like jittery. Very interesting.
Cool diff night. Okay, where?
Oh.
Yeah.
Now you're like peeking and. Where are you? Like, are you at the bar? What is happening here? What Wi-Fi are you using?
No.
Are you even home? You don't have the cool purple background, do you? You don't have the cool purple background. That's what started all this. You went to the blue background, and now we're having all these issues, and it's really throwing me off. Okay, now you sound better.
I do.
All right. Mark Andrews was your choice at tight end. So you have Rodgers, Chubb, Mike Evans, and Mark Andrews. I've got to wrap it up. I've got Josh Allen at quarterback, Jamar Chase at wide receiver, Travis Kelce at tight end, And I am going to go with Saquon Barkley against the Chicago Bears. I think Saquon has done what we've all thought he could be capable of. He's finally playing well. A team that really has no options at wide receiver right now. Between injuries, Sterling Shepard going down, which was difficult to watch, non-contact, really wasn't, was just running a straight line almost, and tears his ACL in his left knee during the Monday night game against the Cowboys. Kenny Golladay looks like he could be cut or traded with the way they're using him currently with the Giants. Wandell Moore, Wandell Robinson, and you just go down the list of guys at wide receiver on that team, and they don't use any of them or they're injured. So Barkley, I think, is going to be the bell cow once again for the Giants in that contest against the Chicago Bears, and I just see him having success once again, which would make you very happy, as I know you have him on at least one fantasy team.
Yes. Am I back?
Yes, you are back.
Okay.
You sound all right.
Sorry about that.
No, it's
Sorry.
fine. You just...
I was at the bar. My bad.
Your dial-up internet that you got... Your AOL...
My damn AOL free subscription's up, I guess.
AOL CD went up, so... All right, we'll go to Against the Spread, the contest that I am currently 5-1 in. Basically, if you would have bet on the games I chose, you would be doing all right. And I only missed the Memphis game by, I believe it was a point and a half. It was an 11.5 point favorites were the Memphis Tigers over North Texas, and they won by 10. So I missed that by a point and a half. That's how Vegas rolls sometimes. But the Utah Utes, I don't know if you knew this, Brad, but they were playing an Arizona State team that had just fired their head coach, Herm Edwards. Don't know if you've ever heard of him. Yeah, Utah won. I don't know if you knew that either. They were victorious.
I did know that, yeah.
We had a guy.
Is there a reason you're feeling so spicy about this one?
There was someone on TikTok, on the TikTok, that said he would take my money because Arizona State isn't as bad as Nebraska. How dare I compare them to the Cornhuskers, Brad? And then what happened, Brad? What happened? Utah, the Utes, 34, Arizona State, 13. 34-13. That's a 21-point difference. That's 3 touchdowns. And Utah was 14.5-point favorites? Brad, if I can do math, and sometimes I can, I got it right. And I'm 5-1 on the year. So basically what I'm telling you, Brad, is you need to get your toilet paper because you know what's going to happen. You're going to bleep yourself with these picks. Let's get into it. You go first. You are 1-5 on the year. Some difficult games for you. You went 0-3 last week. Tennessee Volunteers, you had them as 10.5-point favorites, and they were only able to come away with a 5-point victory over Florida.
Backdoored, yeah. Backdoored.
Yeah. And then the
17 seconds left. Backdoored. Yeah, go ahead.
And then the Oklahoma Sooners, you had them as 13-point favorites over Kansas State, and Kansas State won that one outright. And then USC, the Trojans, went to Corvallis, take on the Oregon State Beavers. 6.5-point favorites in that contest. They won by just a field goal, 17-14 in Corvallis.
Yes.
And
thanks, Lincoln.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Caleb.
Yeah. So
hurt me more, please.
0-3 last week, 1-5 on the year. Brad, the odds would say things are going to get turned around right here this week. Maybe here's an idea. what if you took the Brad bonus picks and put them into the show
Okay.
and use those
That's a thought.
instead of using them on the bonus picks? I don't know.
Okay.
But you do what you want to do. You go first.
I'm just trying to make that side money, Steve.
Okay.
I'm trying to get my solo deal going.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, funny you mentioned Oklahoma losing, and I just kind of wanted to go over a quick thing that I want to teach the people in the sports gambling world. A little something I like to call emotional hedging. Now, emotional hedging has become a great practice for me. What is emotional hedging, you may ask? Well, I'll tell you, listener. When your team is playing and involved in a bet that you want to make, bet against your team. This is emotional hedging. Trust me on this. Something good is going to come from this game. Either your team's going to win the game and you're stoked, or hey, darn, your team lost, but hey, I won money. So, for example, your team's let's say minus 13-point favorite against Kansas State. Go ahead and take Kansas State plus 13, especially in this situation, because it could have worked out to where OU, I don't know, won by 7, and it was like, okay, well, OU still won, but I also won money. Emotional hedging. And this is your lesson for the week, everyone. Thanks for listening. Let's get to my first pick. I'm going to go ahead and take...
Boring.
I'm just trying to help. Arkansas plus 17.5 at home against Alabama. I know going against Alabama is a little crazy, but I think this Arkansas team is pretty damn good. 17.5 points in Fayetteville is a lot of points, and I am not convinced on Alabama this year. Their one road game that they played this year was against Texas, and they squeaked out a 1-point victory against a backup quarterback. So until I see differently, I'm going to roll with the Razorbacks plus 17.5 at home. My next pick is, I don't feel good about this one at all. It feels gross even saying it. But I'm going with Michigan minus 10.5 at Iowa. Will there be 10.5 points even scored? Who knows? But this card sucked this weekend, so I'm going with the Wolverines minus 10.5. My favorite play of the week, which could be on Brad's bonus picks, but I'm going to start trying to improve my record here. I'm going with the Washington Huskies minus 3 at UCLA. Now, this is a Friday night game. Washington has had an impressive season so far. They have wins against Michigan State and that Kent State team that I mentioned previously. I really like what they're doing with transfer Michael Penix Jr. He came over from Indiana. He's averaging 347 passing yards per game, 12 touchdowns, which ranks 8th in the nation, and only 1 interception. I love what they're doing up there. And UCLA has played the likes of Bowling Green, Alcorn State, South Alabama, and Colorado. So the undefeated record doesn't really do much for me. They are on the road against UCLA, but then again, it's UCLA. So there's only going to be like 12 people there. Give me the Huskies minus 3.
What's the quarterback's name again for Washington?
Michael Penix.
You just like to say
Penix.
his name. Yeah, you just like to say his name.
He's a junior.
Be
though.
honest, you just like to say his name.
Penix Jr.
You just like to say his name. All right,
Sure.
time for my picks. Reminder, I hope you have your toilet paper. That's all I'm saying. Let's start out with a game that you, Brad, and the listeners may be saying, wait, they have football teams? They do. UConn hosting Fresno State. The Bulldogs of Fresno from the Silicon Valley. 24-point favorites, Brad. 24.
Whoa.
You know who I'm going with? UConn, the Huskies,
Whoa.
Jim Mora Jr. Talk
Whoa.
about it. Let's roll with it. They're going to cover.
This is not the Maui Invitational? This is
No,
football?
this is
Okay.
football, baby. They're not
Okay.
going to Maui. They're not hosting them over in Atlantic City. No. Fresno flying across the country.
This is Husky football,
They
baby.
are flying across the country
Dog pound.
to UConn, to Connecticut. And I'm going to say the Huskies cover 24-point dogs against Fresno State.
Can you tell we didn't like the board this week?
Yeah, we hated the board. All right, now I'm gonna go to the state of Texas, where's my home now. We're gonna go out west though. Really, it's a game in Kansas, but I'm gonna go with a Texas team, Lubbock, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They are 8-point dogs at Kansas State. You know why I'm taking Texas Tech? A, they're coming off a victory over the Texas Longhorns, riding high. New head coach Jeff McGuire, big time. A lot of history as a high school coach in the state of Texas. Kansas State coming off that victory against Oklahoma. You think Adrian Martinez is really going to do this again? I don't think so. Not a chance. At home, the Kansas State fans are going to be rocking and rolling. They're going to be wild, and they're going to get upset by the Texas Tech Red Raiders. 8-point dogs in that one. I'm going with the Red Raiders. And then to wrap it up, Brad, we're going to go to Middle Tennessee State. You know who they're playing? You have no idea. They're playing Texas San Antonio.
They're playing Texas San Antonio.
Yeah,
UTSA.
the Roadrunners going into Middle Tennessee State. You know where Middle Tennessee State is?
It's in Tennessee, baby.
It's in the middle of Tennessee because I don't know what town they're in
Nailed
either.
it.
But the Roadrunners of Texas San Antonio, 4-point favorites over Middle Tennessee State University. They just beat Miami. Middle Tennessee State did. Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Not the one in Ohio that Big Ben played for. No. We're talking the one down south in Florida. Will Smith sang about it. We're going with that one. Here's the thing, though. I'm taking the Roadrunners. Beep, beep. Beep, beep. I'm going with the Roadrunners because you know what? They got another Texas high school legend coaching them up. Jeff Traylor. They've had success. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Beep, beep. Make it happen. 4-point favorites. They're going to win by more than 4. Wherever Middle Tennessee State is. Take UTSA, and I'm going to roll on to 8-1, Brad. That's how this is going to happen.
If you go 8-1
with
after
those
this
picks,
card,
right? Unbelievable.
I am demanding we're taking a road trip to Vegas, and we are going to retire after we win because you just picked UTSA and Middle Tennessee State.
Yeah.
Which, by the way...
And UConn Fresno State. And no, there isn't a car playing quarterback for Fresno State. And Dan Orlovsky is not at UConn. Yeah. Jim Calhoun is not coaching this team, Brad.
No, he's not.
He's not.
They probably
Kevin Ollie, not the head coach either. They might have more
tried to get
success.
him to coach. Yeah. And I just want to point out for our fans in Middle Tennessee that that university is located in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is outside of Nashville.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
All love to our Tennessee fans.
Nashville, beautiful.
Nashville's
Have you
beautiful.
been to Nashville?
Smashville. I have been to Nashville.
It is a great time.
I had a work conference there. It was great. We stayed downtown. Great bar scene. Great live music. Everyone's an amazing musician. It's incredible.
Not a lot of work getting done there. I have a feeling.
No.
Just
and
saying.
when you arrive in the airport, everyone has a guitar case.
Except for you.
Except for me, I play the flute.
I thought you were a recorder type of guy.
I can only play Hot Cross Buns so many times.
Hot cross buns.
I remixed it. I did everything I could. I got to challenge myself.
Yeah, I run. All right. Well, we're going to have to do a lot of editing here.
This show was off the rails, and
yes,
I love it.
Really. Like Wi-Fi issues. I didn't know how to hit record.
Can we handshake and just agree that we mutually butchered this episode? But I think it's going to be a fun one.
It could be one of the better ones, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guess we'll stay up till early parts of Wednesday morning to get this out to the 7 people that listen. 3 of them Brad found on Tinder. Hey, yes. You can follow us.
I'm catfishing them.
You're catfishing them. You're using
they
my
think
photos,
I'm Kirk
aren't you?
Herbstreit.
You're using my photos again, aren't you?
Kirk Herbstreit, 48.
There you go.
Ohio, or wherever he lives now.
Nashville, actually.
Nashville.
Pretty sure he's
It's
a Nashville
Nashville,
guy.
baby.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
It's all connected.
He's in Nashville with everybody. Everybody's moved. They've either moved to Nashville or Austin, from what I understand.
He seems like a Nashville guy.
Yeah. Follow us, TikTok, Game On Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, or tell your mother or grandmother to follow us, Game On Show, and then Twitter, @GameOnGuys. You can also reach us via email, gameon@gmail.com. Visit our website. We'll get the pics up there as well. I'm starting to try to do that. So you can go and check out our Against the Spread each week. That is at gameonguys.wordpress.com. Brad, it was fun. Talk to you.
It was something.
I'll text you this weekend as UConn.
Yeah, we're friends. We can talk.
UConn gets blown out by Fresno
We
State.
gonna get together and watch the UConn game, bro?
Yeah, I might. I'm doing play-by-play this weekend.
For UConn? Because
No,
I would believe
for
it.
East
Oh,
Texas
okay.
Baptist University.
Shout out.
6 o'clock contest, Southwestern University. The Pirates come to town from Georgetown, Texas.
Go Cats.
So, root on the Tigers. All right, man.
Tigers. That's
Yeah.
that's
That's all right.
They're
Old
cat.
school. The old school was the
It's a
Cats.
feline.
Yeah, it's a feline. All right. On that note,
There's a hilltop, right?
yeah, hill. There is a hill. All right.
College Hill. Yeah.
See y'all next time on
Bye, guys.
Game On.
Bye.
1, 2, 3.
Are you ready, America? It's time for another edition of Game On. With your host, Stevie Ray Braun, and Brad Bad News Bollinger. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Game On.